Hey, it's Pete. Kevin Toll was nice enough to tag me on his original tag, his June on the Range inspired tag, 6 shooting June on the Range, book tag, 6 questions, original tag by Kevin Toll. He tagged a bunch of people. I let him know, I'm not the biggest expert on Westerns, so I'm probably going to have to do some cheating here to get through it, but I'll do my best. I'll try and keep it short. Okay, number one, saddle up, it says. So saddle up. Number one, fastest gun in the West. What is the fastest paced Western you've ever read? This is the most difficult to answer because I'm sure there's Louis L'Amour that I've read that I don't quite recollect anymore. Or Elmore Leonard's. I read all those. I don't remember a particular one being the fastest, although those are pretty fast paced, not as fast paced as Louis L'Amour. So I'm going to go with one I have a clearer memory of, and that is O Pioneers by Willa Cather. It's set in Nebraska during pioneer days. It's a family saga. It's only about, I don't know, 150 pages or something. It's very short, but it is an epic. It spans generations, so it's very fast paced in the sense that it covers a lot of ground. This pioneer family's saga of strife and heartache and triumph. Definitely worth the read, although it's not a category Western in the sense of like genre fiction or anything, because it's an American classic, but that's the one. Okay, number two, The Trusted Trail Companion. Who's your favorite Western sidekick, partner, or traveling companion? A lot of times, since I've watched so many Westerns, my mind goes immediately to movies, some kind of Walter Brennan character or something. But I don't have to cheat because one does kind of stand out, and that is in Robert B. Parker's Western series, which I think runs around 3 books, starting with Appaloosa. Um, each of the books is named after a town that the heroes, Virgil Coe and Everett Hitch, find themselves in. And I think Everett Hitch is a pretty good sidekick, a pretty funny sidekick to go along with the laconic Virgil Coe. I had stopped reading Robert Parker's Spencer novels after a while. They just seemed to get really repetitive to me, and I only found these westerns that he wrote via the movie of Appaloosa, which was made starring and directed by Ed Harris, which is a great movie. And I read them, and they were incredible. All 3 of them. I think they're probably up to like 50 volumes now because sadly he started this Western series very late in his life. It would be nice if he had written a ton more of them, but never fear, the family's always there to cash in. So just like they do with the Spencer books and the Sonny, not Sonny Rollins, whoever. Well, his other series, his other detective series. They got a guy to write continuation novels, I guess they call them now. So there's a ton of these Virgil Cole Everett Hitch novels out now, and as long as they keep selling, maybe they stop the series by now. Who knows? But just read the ones by Robert Parker, not the ones that are Robert Parker's apostrophe books by some other person. Anyway, yeah, I really recommend those books. Everything I'm going to mention here is a book I recommend reading, which ties into the final question. Anyway, number 3, Frontier Town. Definitely have to cheat here, and I'm going to try and cheat in the most creative way I can. Which Western setting would you most like to visit? Could be a ranch, mining camp, frontier town, desert outpost, or any memorable location from a Western story. I guess it could be, I guess I could say Deseret, um, the Mormon the Mormon settled land that I think has something to do with in the novel Riders of the Purple Wage, which I haven't read. Riders of the Purple Sage, I mean, betraying my sci-fi roots by misremembering the title and mentioning Riders of the Purple Wage, which is a incomprehensible Philip Jose Farmer story in either Dangerous Visions or Again Dangerous Visions. And I like Philip Jose Farmer, but the story is highly experimental. Anyway, I meant to say Riders of the Purple Sage, or I thought about saying Monument Valley from the movies, from like the John Ford movies. It's a place I'd really like to go. Or Carlsbad Caverns, which I was recently interested to learn was an inspiration for the setting in Red Nails, which is a Conan story, also not Western. See, the problem I have is the Western towns and spaces and places I remember are all horrifying. You wouldn't want to be in Laredo or Lonesome Dove from Larry McMurtry's books. They're just horrible places. That's what makes the books good, I think. So as long as I have to choose between horrible places, I'm going to go way off topic and say the little town south of the border in the book The Getaway, which is not a Western, but is kind of a Western. It could be filmed as a Western. That the escaped bank robber finally ends up in, and many people consider it a metaphor for hell or Hades or the afterlife of some kind, purgatory. Very, very dark ending for a book, just madness. And so as long as we're going to go to an awful place, I'll pick that, even though it's not a Western and not some place I'd ever want to go. The Getaway by Jim Thompson. Okay. High Noon Showdown, number 4, another cheat I'm going to do here. This is pretty blatant cheating. Choose 2 Western characters from different books to face off in a duel. Who wins and why? The characters I'm going to choose are Shane and the Virginian. And the reason I'm choosing them is I still have not read either of those books, although I did see the movie, which is one of the dullest movies I've ever seen, one of the dullest classic movies I've ever seen, Alan Ladd and Shane. I know that's sacrilege, but that's my opinion. Jack Palance. It's just a ponderous, epic movie, but the book's only like 100 pages or something, so I should probably read that. And Virginian, I kind of wanted to get to this year. I don't know if I will. I was supposed to read it last year. So I'm behind on my classic Westerns. So when I read the books, I'm pretty sure Shane's going to win because he's a gunfighter. The Virginian, I think, is just the guy who hangs out and works and has different types of adventures, not a strict gunfighter like Shane. But anyway, doesn't matter because my answer makes no sense because I haven't read either of the books involved. Anyway, I was going to say Hondo or Ombre because Ombre is a Elmore Leonard novel and Hondo is a Louis L'Amour novel. I read them both, and the characters and the titles sound similar, so maybe they could have a fight. Anyway, okay, number 5, The Campfire Tale. What Western book would you recommend to someone who's never read a Western before? Or maybe one, if time is of no consequence. What could that be? Time is no consequence. Well, I can't think of any that I would recommend on that stand. One reason I've decided to do this, I'm recording this on Thursday because I saw a couple of these already. The people have done them, and they're getting to all my ideas first. So I can't think of a single long Western book that every person I've ever met adores, and it does not care about its length, even if they're daunted at first, and it doesn't matter if they read Westerns or not. I've really never met a person who doesn't like Lonesome Dove, so I certainly will not recommend that. What I'm going to recommend instead is a book that's lack of interest on BookTube kind of perplexes me. It is called Butcher's Crossing, and it's by John Williams. And John Williams' other book, or 2 of his books, one's about Augustus, I think it might be called Augustus, which I couldn't really get into, and his most famous book now is Stoner. So all these books are very different, obviously. Stoner's about a sad college professor a small life kind of guy. Um, but it's beloved of the bros, beloved of the lit bros, right? And I'm not going to hold that against it because I think it's a terrific novel too. Um, and the same writer wrote this book called Butcher's Crossing, which is one of the most intense, brutal. It is the book that Cormac McCarthy wanted to write, I believe, when he wrote West Meridian, sun dumps behind the mountains, Blood Meridian, which it was a book I despise, which the bros love, which is a book written by someone who clearly, Cormac McCarthy is the. See if I have time for a rant here and still keep it under 15 minutes. Yeah, there's only one more question. Cormac McCarthy is the Michael Haneke of prose. Michael Haneke is a European film director who makes films, and I do like some of his films. I like The Piano Teacher a lot. Probably that's the one I like. But Michael Haneke really seems to have focused his career on punishing people for the crime of wanting to go to the movies and wanting to be lost in a movie. And I feel that Cormac McCarthy kind of does that too. It's like, oh, you like westerns, you like science fiction, you like novels, you like stories, you like to be swept away. No, I'm not going to give you any of that. I'm going to make this book as hard to read as possible. If I didn't need money as bad and I wasn't as impatient, I would not make them 200 pages. I would make them 9,000 pages long. But I have to. I like money, so I have to keep turning them out. Blood Meridian has one thing in common with Lonesome Dove is that they both started as screenplays. I don't know if people know that about Lonesome Dove. Larry McMurtry wrote The Last Picture Show, which was adapted into a film by Peter Bogdanovich. Can't believe I blew that. Then Peter Bogdanovich was offered a chance to do a Western. And he goes, I will only do it if I can have John Wayne, Henry Fonda, and Jimmy Stewart in it. And they go, yeah, fine, no problem. And he goes, I'll hire Larry McMurtry, great Texas writer, who at that time had written no historical novels, I don't think. I think he was just a straight novelist with Horsemen Pass By and Last Picture Show and those kind of coming of age novels that he also writes. So they wrote, and you can kind of guess who plays Gus, who would play Gus, who would play Call, who would play the third character is kind of a little bit slow character who survives the book. I can't think of his name right now. Would probably have been Jimmy Stewart. John Wayne would have been the hot-headed Texas Ranger. The more cerebral one would have been Henry Fonda. Anyway, so he wrote a screenplay for that. Larry McMurtry did, and they could never get the schedules. They could never work out the deals for the three actors who are all aging, and the director Bogdanovich really only wanted to do it because of his actor, because he was such a Henry Ford fan. So he goes, I don't even want to do the movie now. So Larry McMurtry then paid, I want to say, it wasn't a massive amount of money. He paid the studio a massive amount of money to buy his own screenplay back. I don't know if it was just like returned his salary for working on it or whatever. And then that eventually became Lonesome Dove. So think what we would have lost if they had made that stupid movie with when Henry Fonda and John Wayne were in their 70s. And I mean, it might have been a good movie, but we would have lost probably the greatest Western of all time. And I would argue one of the greatest post-war novels. And you could even make the argument that it is the great American novel because of its subject and its scope and everything. So, that's just how life goes. So it worked out in that case. Too much time on that. I didn't even recommend a novel yet. Oh, Butcher's Crossing is what people should read instead of Blood Meridian. It is just as dark, just as brutal, just about honest about the dark side of the West. It's a very grim novel, but it's actually written in a gripping format. It's very well researched. I once read a very long essay, which I probably can't find anymore, like a memoir kind of essay about buffalo hunters, um, and how they worked, and what it was like, and buffalo skinners. And I kind of wonder if John Williams read that same essay or read things by it. It seems to be very well researched, whereas I think Cormac McCarthy probably thought research was gay, um, or unmanly at least. Why don't the lit bros embrace that book? It's because maybe they only want to read one Western, and it's and they've already got Blood Meridian. I don't know, but that is a book that I would recommend. See, recommendations are hard because everybody's different. If you wanted, and that's a pretty grim book. Another a great, well written book, perhaps the best Western I've ever read, is the Oxbow Incident. Again, very dark story about humanity, and I would probably just say, just go grab any Louis L'Amour, any kind of skinny paperback, or Elmore Leonard. Elmore Leonard is another guy who's only his westerns are good, as far as I'm concerned. I think his westerns, but he stopped writing westerns pretty early before he got into all his kind of white space on the page. I don't write the parts that people tend to skip, so they're mostly just all dialogue by a couple of dumb thugs talking to each other, like in Get Shorty or something. But and he still writes some good stuff too. Towards the end of his life, Fire in the Hole, that story, Raylan Givens story, that was the pilot for the for Justified series, is a good story. And so I don't really have a one recommendation for everybody to read, but I wish more people read Butcher's Crossing, and everybody should read The Oxbow Incident as well. What is your number 6, Ride into the Sunset? What is your favorite ending in a Western novel or short story? Thank God, Kevin. Thank God you said short story, because I do have one for this, and it is the story A Man Called Horse by Dorothy M. Johnson. Dorothy M. Johnson wrote, I'd say about, well, 2 volumes of short stories that are probably all written in the 40s or 50s, Saturday Evening Post or someplace like that. Many of them, or a number of them at least, were made into classic movies. Like there is a movie from the 70s called A Man Called Horse with Richard Harris. Her most famous short story, probably because it became a classic John Ford story, is John Ford movie, is The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which is one of the greatest westerns, and pretty faithful to the story from what I remember. I don't know if she's in print, maybe in ebook someplace. The titles are usually based on some movie. One of her books, I think, was called The Hanging Tree, and I think that was another film that was made. But the Man Called Horse is a great short story about a guy who survives the Indian Native American massacre and is taken as a slave and works, is made to work. Eventually, I don't want to spoil too much, but eventually becomes not a slave, becomes part of the community, and gets a wife, lives out a whole life there over like 12, 14 years, something like that. I think he was probably a trapper or something. He was out there pretty much on his own anyway. And the end of that story is very moving. His whole arc, the character's whole arc, from being a prisoner and then being forced to do labor, and then just his change in the community, and the way he then the sacrifices he makes later on, and the way he I'm not being very stoic about describing this, but he's a very stoic person. The way he describes the experience at the end is just a beautiful way to sum up the story. So I recommend that story. Tag others. Time to prove you're not yellow. Tag some cowboys, ranchers, wrestlers, and card cheats. Well, I do know a lot of reprobates on BookTube. I would say most of you are reprobates. He tagged a lot of people, though. I'm trying to think. I don't want to bother tagging people who don't read Westerns. See, Kevin even tagged Steve Donahue, and I know we went over this at the Micro Booktubers event in Reykjavik in 2024, the summit we had. Do not tag Steve Donahue. He is a pariah and a leper, but Kevin does what he wants to do because he's a rebel. So he tagged Steve Donahue, which we're not supposed to do, but it's done now. It can't be undone. The world's like spinning off its axis as I read this. I'll see if I can find anybody. I don't want to say out a name in case I'm missing them. Every time I tag people, I've noticed that I'm double tagging people. So we'll see what I come up with. Anyway, that's it. Kevin, thanks for the tag. Let's see. Adios, muchachos.